Well, today's always good and get back with the players and start the week of preparation and obviously, excited to get going with Big Ten play and facing talented, well-coached Michigan team. But big thing is for us to have a great week of preparation. I like the start of it and need to have that all week.
Well, your team has won the first two games fairly handily. Do you have a pretty good sense of how good this team is at this stage, or are you viewing a game like this as another litmus test that'll be more substantial in terms of a challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's truthfully, you got to play the whole season. And throughout that, any season, you're going to experience all the probably emotions, highs and lows. And, we're just beginning. I like what they've done to this point. And we know that we'll be challenged in so many different ways throughout the course of the season. But I like where they're at right now, and I like where they're at going into this game.
Well, I think after the Central Michigan game, you were asked about the 2-minute drill, and you talked about wanting to take another look at it at the end of the half. For a guy like Jack, who hasn't done it a lot in games, what's the learning curve generally for a young quarterback to really get comfortable in that and to know the pace that's needed?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that go into it. What you're talking about, pace, but I think it's, each situation's different, and kind of what are you trying to get done? How do you play off of what just happened? And, I think that 2-minute drills at the end of a half can be very different than the end of a game, because, you're seeing if you can get something, but you're not sure, okay, where we're at. You don't want to give the opponent another possession. So I think each one has its own kind of uniqueness to it. And, I think that's what's great about playing is you do learn from every piece of it. And Jack is certainly one of them, or the quarterback, but it's really everyone, and that's why all situations, and you try to create as many in practice, but then, it's always a little bit different in games.
Paul, JT's carries are down a little bit. Some of that's obviously due to blowouts, but you're also throwing the ball better and more often. I mean, it's conceivable his carries could go down. For a kid, it's obviously in the background, but chasing records and trophies and this and that. How do you think he would handle that if his carries are reduced?
Yeah, I think, we don't know, right? And like you said, this is really early in it, but I do believe, and it's not lip service when he talks about, with this team and whatever he can do to help this team. And he does help it in so many ways. Obviously, carrying the ball is one of them. But, I think like any competitor that, he wants to be able to impact it. But I think he also knows that he can impact it in a lot of ways. And I love the way that he approached it. And I really do believe, that the team and the team's success is truly what he's chasing.
Paul, when you look back at last year's Michigan game, one thing that stands out is just the passing game took a long time to get going. What was the diagnosis there? When you think back to that game, and if you remember a game like that in your coaching career where it was such a struggle to complete passes?
Right. It's I think when you look back at that one or any game like that, it's it's execution, right, or failure to execute. And I think you could take a look at every one of those snaps, and it's two-part. It's what can you do to better execute, or when you did have success, how you did execute, and then obviously there's an opponent or another factor in it that you don't have control over. And it's a good defense, and they will challenge you in a number of ways, and you got to be able to handle it, and you got to be able to play off. And when you do get those opportunities, you do have to. When you play any good team, when you do get opportunities, you have to take advantage of them. And you look back at any game, last year or any game that when you play. If you don't, that makes it a little bit harder. And if those keep stacking up, then it becomes really hard.
Well, Danny Davis missed the first 2 games last year and then obviously came back. In the last year or so, in what ways have you seen growth from him on and off the field?
I'm sorry.
Danny Davis?
Yeah.
What areas do you feel like you've seen some growth from him on and off the field in the last year?
Yeah, I think, one area that's helped him, I thought, was, like this summer, having a full summer to really work out and train, and he kind of always been, even in spring, he didn't get spring. And so having that, I think he feels better. And like anything, he knows himself better. He knows the game better. And, I think with that comes some confidence and understanding how to better approach things. I've loved the way that he's grown and handled himself. But I think it's all those, you kind of combine it. And I think that, it's a good room right now. Coach Gilmore's done a really nice job. And, AJ's older and KP's older and getting Q back and Jack Dunn and Crum. It's a good room, so I think they help each other as well.
How has Jack done in terms of distributing the ball like a point guard? Looking for guys who are open and maybe not just focusing on a favorite receiver per se.
Yeah, I've felt like it's, he's been pretty good on it. I don't get a sense that, he's trying to force. Sometimes you see that when they're forcing things, and I think he's handling it pretty well, actually.
When you start preparing for a Michigan team that's kind of changing their identity offensively with the new coordinator, does it make it more difficult since you haven't seen them with this personnel, or how does it change what you guys do to prepare?
Yeah, going in and, 2 games into a season, there's a lot, really, any team you're playing, offensively, defensively, things in special teams, you're not seeing it all. And yet you've got to understand what are teams, what are they trying to do, kind of what's their base, for lack of a better term, and you're going to see things that you're not seeing on film, and that's part of it, and you've got to be able to adjust within the flow of a game, or in fact, on a play, and so that is I think that's a challenge that everyone faces at this point in the year.
Paul, what are your thoughts on Jack Cohn's preparedness for this first big major test? What does he need to improve on most, do you think, as you get into Big Ten play?
I think when you ask the question, for each one of these individuals, every opportunity is a big test. And this isn't the first time. Last year when he had his first start, that's a big game for a young man, right? And then when you do it again, you understand. I think Jack's done a nice job of working, of taking things in, of trying to learn from every bit of it. And when you ask what's the next step is to continue to improve, right? And it's to continue to trust yourself on things that all right, this is it, I'm seeing it right, trust it. It's there will be, in every game, there will be adversity, and how do I handle that? Maybe it's a little bit different than when it came before, but each game opportunity is a challenge. That's the fun part about it, and I think he just has to continue to work to improve and to do his part in helping this team.
What do you think Ben Bredesen from Michigan, their guard, what kind of challenges is he going to pose? He's really been really instrumental this early part of the season.
Really good player, really good player, and he's I think he plays the game, loves playing. It looks to me like he loves playing the game, and a leader on their team, and that says a lot, and have a ton of respect for him.
Paul, last year we saw Bryson Williams step in as a true freshman and played really well, and now you're seeing Keanu Benton, who's going to get more of an opportunity this week. Did you expect that from him when he walked onto this campus?
Well, certainly, we were excited that he was joining us, and you don't know how any young freshman, when they come in, you don't know. I think as a coach, you always have faith and belief in that they'll get it, and they'll contribute at some point. You don't know when, and I've been impressed with the way that he's kind of handled everything and continued to grow, and as we all know, there's a ton of learning still ahead of him. But I like his approach, and obviously the experiences that he's been getting are extremely valuable.
Michigan's defense has been really good the last couple of years, but
Yep.
they've lost a lot of players to the NFL both years, really.
Right.
What are you seeing from them this year with some new faces over there?
Yeah, you see some new faces, and you certainly see a talented group, and I think too, this year, and played two different types and styles of offense, and so it's a little bit you're projecting it a little bit, and yet there are enough. You recognize a lot of the same players, and so they've always done a good job of playing a lot of guys, and so you certainly have them on film and tape, but I think they've played two different styles of offense, and will be a little bit different. And so there'll be some things that we've seen and that we're gonna recognize, and then there'll be some new looks for us.
Paul, you were talking about approach change with Danny Davis before. Can the same be said about Zach Bond? Have you seen a different mentality from him maybe the last year, 18 months?
Yeah, I think last year, this time Zach's just probably learning how to be a starter, and I think Zach has done a great job from the end of last season to now of kind of taking advantage of every day to make his last year the best it can be. And you talk that, and you want everyone to do that, but I really believe, and I think I'm seeing that he's truly doing that, and it's been fun to see. And he's been within himself, but more vocal. Clearly one of our leaders. He's enjoying every day and every bit of it, and I think it's a guy that's truly kind of all into this year and making the most of it and doing it in an admirable way, and that's just locking into each day, and I think he's grown tremendously.
You mentioned Keanu Benton before. Leo Chanel's another true freshman that's put himself in position to see a fair number of snaps.
Right.
What has he done to put himself in that position?
He's worked and he's made plays, and it helped. He took advantage of coming early. So was here in the spring and got a lot of work this spring. And Coach Bosted's done a really nice job of bringing him along and putting him in, and especially in spring ball and fall camp. He loves playing the game, and he will work at it. And there's a good room. There's a lot to learn, and Chris is. He's helpful, and Mikey's helpful, and there's Jack Sanborn's helped him, and so there's a guy that obviously we're excited about the talent that he has, and love the fact that he absolutely playing the game is important to him. He loves it, and he works, and he's taking advantage of all the opportunities for growth, and he's fun to be around.
Paul, last week or 2 weeks ago, you didn't have Logan Bruss. If you don't have him again this week, what did you learn from Mormon and Beach, who you guys split the workload there, that maybe you didn't know before how they handled that situation?
Yeah, you know a lot about them. We're with them all the time. But then when you get put in game situations, you want to see, is it the same person? I think they were, and they didn't morph into someone different. The moments didn't get big on them. Like we said, we know the tests are different each week, and certainly as you get into conference play, we anticipate the tests being harder and more challenging. But I've liked the way they've worked, and they've done a lot of different things, and so I think that helps whenever you have to shuffle. It's not like the first time that they're being asked to do something.
Kind of that same thing. With the injuries that have kind of hit the tight end position as hard as they have, how have you had to adjust just not having the depth of that position that you came into the season with?
Yeah, I mean, you just do, right? I mean, it's you got to make sure that you're putting guys in good positions, and just because you want to do something or you have done something doesn't mean that it's right. And so I think a lot of people absorb that, right? When there's an injury at one position, certainly those in that position group are affected, and some have to rise up, step up, and then you also covered by other guys having to absorb a little bit different role. And so I think guys are doing that, and it'll probably, at a lot of positions throughout the course of the season, that's going to happen.
We haven't talked to you since Xander announced that he's done playing
Right.
football, and you've always talked about that you feel bad for the kid that he has. But how did this one hit you? Because this is his third injury,
Right.
and that's it for him.
Yeah, it's well, obviously, you feel terrible for him, and yet he was the one that probably helped me, the quickest. There was no regret in giving it a shot, and I think there's also though that it's a great example of someone that's ever since I've known him, been around him, he's been kind of an all-in guy, and when he is all in, he goes, and yet there is a finality to what all has happened with him, but there's also, I think, an excitement of now he knows, and I think Xander he's a talented football player. So for him to continue playing and pursue the possibility of, playing after college was a real thing. And yet he covered himself really well. Yeah, he's smart as could be. And I think now football is done. And I think, can be and should be excited about what's coming. He's interviewing a ton of different med schools, and I don't know much about that deal, but in talking to him, he'll be highly recruited. And I think there is an excitement too. All right, this is what my future is going to be, and embracing it. And so it's you appreciate and you learn a lot seeing guys go through what obviously is frustrating, and he knows it well. He knows the road to recovery, and yet he's going to be really successful because that's just a hurdle. It doesn't stop him. And so it's wish for him and for our team. It had been a different narrative, but it's hard not to be excited for him. And the best is still yet to come for him.